So you've worked with many prominent musicians, producers, like the Heat Makers, and even some very prominent musicians have stolen your music. I say that to highlight how great you are lyrically and musically. However, you started out as a poet. So tell us about how you first got into poetry and then how you transitioned into music.
Paul Bonaguro. I'm not sure if he's alive. If he's not, God rest the dead.
Is that how you want your thing to be?
Where is it at?
Right here.
I can put it lower.
Yeah.
You do me a favor? You just give me my chapstick and my jacket. Should be in my pocket. Thank you. I'll give it. I'm okay.
Yep.
Yeah, Paul Bonaguro. Like I said, everybody has that one or two teachers. And he was the first one. Daniel Kolak was college. Paul Bonaguro was this hippie white dude. I went to a program called Upward Bound, which was for like inner city youth to have something to do during the summer, to give us culture and all this other stuff. I think it's a nationwide program. That's one way to see it.
Hey, who knew they did helicopter tours? That's tight.
I thought he was gonna go through the censor of it.
Me too. That would have been really fire. Okay.
Yeah, so the Upward Bound program, and we had to take all different types of classes, electives as well. And I had to take a creative writing course. And Paul Bonaguro was this hippie, white dude, radical, yelling, flimsy with his arms and his body all the time, but the way he taught and his like purity of spirit, because people would crack on him. The students would crack on him, but eventually we just started to like him because he was just himself and he was a wild child. But he knew what he was talking about. So myself, and God rest the dead, my brother, Lawrence Pierre, who died, I believe, last year. We was like the creative writing highlights of the class. He saw something in us where he started to give us extra work. I was right above us.
They must be looking for somebody.
Yeah, the tour not gonna do that.
Huh?
The tour not gonna do that.
Mm-mm.
But yeah, so he saw something in me and my brother Lawrence Pierre, who was like 2 years older than me, where he felt that we should continue what we was doing as far as creative writing. So he would give us books. He would give us poetry books, like old school classical joints. He had me reading like Dante's Inferno at 12 years old, the Divine Comedy and all this type of stuff. He will also put us on to people like the Last Poets. So it wasn't just classical poetry. He from the civil rights era, where he was one of the only white dudes on the front lines. So we reading the Last Poets. He giving us jazz albums to listen to, Miles Davis, Bitches Brew, like, and kind of taking us under his wing. And Lawrence was my ceiling. and the fact that he was a couple years older than me and he was who I looked up to as far as being able to write. I felt like he was just so much better than me. So that was like the first impetus to get me to start writing. And then once I did it, I just kind of fell in love with it. And me and Lawrence got picked up to start to do the slam poetry events at the different colleges, being 14, 15 years old, amongst college seniors and stuff like that, going to places like the New Eurekan in New York. If you know, you know, that's one of the biggest places that you could ever perform poetry. So he was already out here, and he got his license, a couple years after that. So it would just be me and him almost on some battle shit, going to other people's poetry spaces and doing our stuff. So that's kind of how it started.
So tell us, who is Dox Diggler and how was he formed?
So my poetry name initially was Paradox, and I just always saw that word come up in philosophy more so. But then I started to see it come up in the poetry stuff I was reading. So when I looked it up, it says something that appears as it is not. And I started to look at everything like almost like a paradox has the energy of contradiction, but in a more intentional way that makes more sense, I guess, if you will. So I started to feel like I was a paradox. I started to feel like life was a paradox, long and short, hard and beautiful, ugly and beautiful all at the same time. And then what really got me is the Greek translation of the word paradox was beyond opinion. And with me having these confidence issues and feeling like I was negatively judged in so many different ways, shapes, and forms, or just not seen at all, that kind of felt like a safe space for me to be beyond opinion. Well, I don't need y'all to be able to appreciate me. I'm gonna do what I do for myself anyway. So those two words underneath the word paradox became my mantra for how I lived and how I approached my talent. And then later on, as I started to smell myself and rapping all this other stuff, I shortened paradox to dox, acronym for dire excel, death or excellence. It was that serious for me at that point to be the best at what I do. I was willing to die for it. And then the Diggler got added later when I saw the movie Boogie Nights, and I'm out here in these streets doing what I'm doing. His name was Dirk Diggler, so I kind of just put it together, Dox Diggler, and it just stuck, and it became my moniker. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your actual hip hop career. A lot of people don't know that you are an artist if they are new to you now. But you've had a very extensive hip hop career and you've done many beautiful things. Tell us some about what your experience was.
Yeah, so when I was during that time when I got invited to the studio on the college campus, after that I did the poetry and everybody was on me. We went up there and everybody, it was like 15 of us. It was one beat at that time. Everybody would just get the freestyle, the instrumental tapes, and just put a verse on it. So we had one up there, like 15 dudes up there that had the best verse. And who became my first manager and one of my best friends at that time, Spencer Charles. We just called him Charles. He was just looking at me after I came out like, nigga, you killed everybody on this. This is your first time writing a verse. And he was a car salesman. And he was very like boisterous and dope personality. Everybody loved Charles. So as me and his relationship started to develop, arsonists or the heat makers ended up coming to purchase a car from him. And at that time, I had created my first tape, and he gave the tape to Arsonist. And the next day, Arsonist had hit me, and he was like, "Yo, I want you to come out to the Bronx, and I just want to sit down and talk to you." And matter of fact, he sent the beat too, right? So it was Tross, the business end of things, and then my man Justice, complete wild child, hood ass nigga. So I had both sides as far as best friends cultivating that, and we all was click or whatever. So he had sent the beat. I got a Heat Makers beat, right? And Heat Makers is Dipset, Platinum Records, all this other shit. Everybody knew Dipset at the time and Heat Makers. I got a Heat Makers beat, my nigga. Like, so they looking at me like, bro, you gotta body this shit before we go in there. So I write the song. I go in there. We sit down. We talk. And he's like, yeah. So let me see what you did to the song. And the name of the song was Like Me. Hard as fuck to this day. I don't even got it on tape no more. But from that time, I had an official music career. I had my first deal through Heat Makers with a company called Major Key, which is an independent label at the time. So I have a budget. They putting out music on me that was in stores, getting me looks like being on BET, rap ciphers on big platforms and stuff like that. I'm on the talk shows at that time, which is not as big as they are now because that wasn't really a thing yet. But I was on all the early talk shows and shit like that, going on tour. So yeah, a lot of people don't realize how much I've done in the music industry. Worked with track masters Tone and Pope, who created most of the '90s hip hop and R&B music of that time as far as production. Met Kanye before he like really became Kanye. Like I was in these rooms and in these spaces, rubbing elbows and shoulders. So it,
And you were also invited to freestyle on Sway.
that was after my music career. Like that was during the period where I'm healing. I don't even consider myself an artist no more. I don't know what I consider myself. The last group I was in, we had a deal on the table with Universal. Sylvia Rome was running it at that time, and we also had a deal on the table with Akon's label, Convict Music. So we had cultivated this group, which was called Crash, by the Heatmakers. And right when we was at the point where we was about to sign paperwork, the group broke up. And that if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be this brick city Buddha that I am now. And the music industry probably would have swallowed me up because I had too much healing to do to have that level of stardom. So it would have destroyed me, and I'm thankful now that that happened. But I was pissed at that time, so I completely left music, didn't make my own, didn't listen to music. And when I got that call to go on Sway, it was 2 years after that. I had to go up there the next day.
How was that?
That was crazy because I hadn't listened to music. I'm not writing shit, so I'm going up there. I gotta re-memorize some verses. So I spent that night. I'm like, all right, let me just download a clip of about 10 verses, put them on my head, and went up there and did my thing. And even my man Still, who was my DJ and kind of my manager at that time, before I stopped, he was like, yo, I know you ain't been on your shit. Like we was in the lobby, 85th floor of the building, a Sirius XM building, looking down on Manhattan. He like, bro, you ready? Like, you gotta go in here and do this shit. I'm like, I'm good, bro. I got it. And I went in there, confidence, foolish confidence, because I probably shouldn't have felt as confident as I did. And I said on a song after that, my 10-year-old raps like really shook shit up to the point that another platform was developed off of it called Bars on I-95, because it was me and two other artists and one of the other artists' manager went on to create the biggest freestyle platform in the world. And I was supposed to be the first guest on there, but again, I wasn't in that capacity. He kept trying to get me, yo, come to Connecticut. I created this because of what you did on that show. But me and him know I can look back and see that my energy in that moment created a whole nother beautiful platform. So yeah, it was lit. It was lit.
What advice do you have for artists that have big dreams for a specific type of career? Like my dream was to be like Beyonce. And then you have some people who have dreams to be like Kanye West or whoever their idol is. And they're recognizing that music actually is not working out for them in the way that they had hoped.
Mhm.
It is working out for them in the way that they can accept.
Right.
But they are looking to be bigger than lights. And it doesn't look like it's in the cards for them. What advice would you give them to cope with where they are in that phase of their journey?
It ain't no easy way around that. Talking about 15 years of blood, sweat, tears, money, energy, going broke in certain ways. When my resources started to dwindle, I'm talking about going to work 12, 13 hours a day, getting off work, driving all the way to the Bronx, to Harlem, to Brooklyn to go record until the wee hours of the morning, performing after we record, coming back home. I was driving a school bus at that time. We had to be on that school bus to take kids to school at 5:50. 9 times out of 10, I had coming from New York after all that, I hadn't slept. I'm on the school bus, half sleep, taking kids to school just to go do the same shit over again. So that's a lot to just let go of, to put that much energy into something. It's no easy way about it, but you get to the point where I got to the point where after being angry with God, like, why would you give me this talent? Why would you give me this desire to think that this is what was going to do it for me? Only to realize that the lessons I was supposed to acquire from that had to do with something bigger than what I was dreaming. Music is small compared to what I'm doing right now. I got the EP out, Bar Mitzvah, with some of my brothers, Vertical Jones, Tom Gitz, and Rap Phenom, and I got a song on there called Borealis, based off the Aurora Borealis, which lights up the dark. So in that song, I'm pretty much talking about the fact that, I ain't go platinum with album sales, but I've helped to heal 1 million souls. That means way more to me than somebody saying, "Yo, you nice," or "You got a classic album," or "Your shit is fire." Like that could never compare. I don't put music down either, but I realize now that me being the next Nas was small. You know what I'm saying? And Minaj is my favorite rapper of all time. And as beautiful as his career has been, I've been able to directly share space, share intimacy in ways where souls have been able to level up and heal, share wounds and things of that nature. So that's way bigger than what I was dreaming back then. But it takes time to get to that point. So you just got to be willing to die.
Before we move on from that question, because this is kind of like what athletes experience
Yeah.
when they don't go pro. And if you've spent your do like this, when you spent your entire life hoping to be something and then you see that it's not going to work out, there is a huge level of depression, lack of confidence. What else do I do in my life? You kind of feel like you have to start over because all of your energy was put into this one thing. What advice do you have to people who have to create a completely different version of themselves because the version of themselves they put all the energy into is not where they are meant to be?
I was just talking to a mutual friend of ours. I won't say her name, but she's an artist. I talked to about her reaching out to me, so she hit me again, and the things I said to encourage her as she's transitioning from like being a painter and moving out of that space when she realizes that may not be what she's supposed to do. I'm like, you in your I don't know space, and usually we run from I don't know. We run from lack of identity, and you got to think about it. The dudes who do become big superstar rappers and athletes, especially athletes, football players got a shelf life, maybe 3 to 5 years in the NFL. If you're a big star, we're talking 10, 15 seasons. Then what? Then what is your identity? You're no longer a football player. So even after all the fame, after all the success, the people that's on the other end, like I want that, they still come to the end of the road of that identity. If that's not your path, you get to become identityless and I don't know without having to spend 15 years of pouring blood, sweat, and tears into thinking I'm only this. And this is why a lot of the football players end up committing suicide and killing themselves. And this is why a lot of the artists end up strung out on drugs with all the success. And we can't figure out why would you do that to yourself? Because identity is a box. Identity is going to keep you plugged into a certain segment of the diversity of your spirit and soul, which wants to, few years of music, few years of painting, few years of this. And when you say, no, I'm just a rapper, you don't get the opportunity to explore those things your spirit may have been asking for lifetimes. So you may get success on a topical level, on a human level, on a career level, but your soul could still be bleeding in some of those moments and still saying, even superstardom is not what I was asking for in this capacity. I wanted the ability to be able to explore. So if you're in one of those spaces where you done gave a lot to something and it feel like that's not what's supposed to happen, don't resist that. Explore that. You may explore that in a way where it does wrap you back around to it. But just being open to that I don't know space is how God creates a buffer for you to incrementally make your way to where your spirit is supposed to be in that moment.
Andre 3000 said at 40 plus he has absolutely nothing to talk about. And Lil Wayne said at 40 plus he has everything to talk about. How did hearing him say that make you feel? And what do you have to say to people who think that they shouldn't be rapping in their ages of 40 plus?
This is the era of our culture that needs as many 40-year-old rappers as possible. I forgot what movie that was. I think Gabrielle Union was in it. And she went to dinner with this dude that was like a 40-year-old rapper. She was like, how old are you? He's like, 40, shorty, right? And so it's been this stigma of rappers getting too old to be able to do or practice the talent that God gave them. But when you think about how the culture has shifted immensely towards 16-year-olds, 20-year-olds who don't have much life experience yet, especially outside of the street, we need those stories. And I had to tell some of my brothers, this is an era of hip hop where you may create a project and it's not going to go number one on the charts because of the type of content you're putting on there. because you may be extremely good at the craft of actually writing, and that's not appreciated no more. You may have things of substance to say, but those 10, 100, 1,000 people that buy your project, the seeds that sprout from that is what the community really needs. And a lot of older rappers, like, when nobody wants to hear what I got to say, go back to pushing the Kanye button. Somebody need that. Somebody needs your experience over the past 40 years and the way you're able to put it together. So I feel like this is the time where we need way more of our elders being able to lay down some groundwork, because we're not having these conversations in real time with the little baby generation. We don't get to sit across from the table from them. So to put that energy out via the music is extremely necessary. It may not make you $1 million. It may take you a year and change to put together a project because you managing a household and children and you being a real man. But if it's in your heart, get that music out. We created Bar Mitzvah a year and a half ago. I'm not super gung-ho on people gravitating towards my music, but once it was created, my spirit kept, yo, what we doing, fellas? Like, we just gonna sit on this project, and eventually it did get out, and it's gonna do what it needs to do. So I also understand Andre, though, because I wouldn't say you're too old to have something to talk about, but I am in a space where my energy is so intentional. I always got something to say, but the intentionality behind, is it time to say something in that particular way? That's not often the space I'm in. So I gotta now wait for those bursts of inspiration when my spirit's like, no, we want to create, and I gotta do it dictated based off that, as opposed to, I'm a writer, I just need to make some stuff. You know what I mean? So I do get both sides.
Time and age. Many people live their lives afraid of time, on the time scale, and they're also living afraid of growing older. They feel as if they have to get a lot of things done now because time isn't on their side. Women feel like they have to have kids now, be in a relationship now, get married now. Men feel like they have to make a certain amount of money now, be successful now. And they're really running against a program of time. So, what do you have to say to those people who are wanting to pursue whatever it is they're trying to pursue, whether it's a family, a career, but they are afraid of this time limit that has been put on them by people that they don't even know exist?
There's a difference between pursuit and presence. If you're in pursuit, you're gonna have to deal with hurrying up and impatience and all that type of stuff. And when I started to get out of that program and I started to just be present, mind you, I'm 36, 37 years old. I ain't got no money. I don't got no path. I don't know what I'm about to do with the rest of my life, but I did know that the keys I had gathered put me in a space where I started to be able to experience peace and stillness. And that eventually started to wrap me around to what became my path, my purpose, my direction. Um, God laughs at our plans to a large degree, and men got biological clocks. The biggest piece of what I consider success when I was in that phase, 36 to about 39, was, damn, I want a family and I'm running out of time. Is my soldiers even going to march? You know what I'm saying? Like, all that type of shit. Am I going to be able to have enough time to find, quote unquote, the one? Am I getting in a space that's too spiritual where a woman is going to be able to appreciate and help me cultivate life, being this dedicated to source? All those questions went through my head constantly, but I got to the point where peace and stillness and presence, like, listen, outside of this fly that keep flying around me, we out here in Big Ben in the middle of nowhere, right? 20-year-old version of myself wouldn't have been able to appreciate this. It would have been like, yo, this take too much time to do this. We gotta drive 8 hours. We gotta drive an hour in once we get to the park just to come here and do this. For what? But once I got to a space where that's where the downloads was coming, that's when my joy and my peace and my relationship with God got cultivated. There was no longer a pursuit of anything. I didn't pursue a wife. I didn't pursue a son. I didn't pursue a career. I just started to sit my ass still, do what God told me, and that started with go teach meditation for free. When I ain't even have the money to travel 40 minutes to Newark to be able to go do that. And step by step, just me being in enough stillness and silence to get the downloads started to lead me towards spaces where I passed people that in their 20s was popping because they was in pursuit. And now they may have all this monetary gain and is in shambles within. And monetarily, I've even passed some of them. But I did it the quote unquote long way. You a deadbeat if you're 37 years old and you ain't got nothing to show for yourself. What woman wants to date you? You can't even take it to the Cheesecake Factory, right? I had to get to a point where it was how God saw me. And in those moments, by myself, on my balcony, at that apartment, in the forest, spaces like this, the world didn't matter. People telling me to hurry up or I haven't amassed enough didn't matter. I didn't give a fuck no more. I really got into that beyond opinion space of the word paradox, and that's when my directional pad came.
How does it feel being a father, and how has fatherhood changed you or made you better?
I still don't feel like a father. Like I be with my son and I don't see him as mine. I don't even see him as my son. I use that language, of course, because that's what people understand. But I really see him, like I said on Aurora Borealis on the album Bar Mitzvah. Um, remix. I get he's a remix of my soul. I get to watch grow. A new Diggler unfolds. So I see it as an extension of myself and my spirit. I don't see him as my son that I gotta raise and do all this other stuff. I see him as the next unfolding of this spirit, this soul that's been unfolding throughout eternity. It could have been a mountain and a rock a billion years ago, and we just at this stage, as far as my corner of creation, where I don't really wear the father hat. I speak about it, but I don't. He's not my son. He's just the latest version of myself, and I think that allows me to have a certain level of humility, where I'm able to learn from him. I'm able to allow him to guide me in ways that sometimes fathers are too stern or too firm or feel like I gotta guide this young man. I don't got that energy with him. I still end up guiding him, but I guide him through how he guides me, if you will. And with that, a lot of the pressure that fathers feel, I don't feel a lot of that.
That's actually going into my next question. There are many fathers and soon to be fathers who may be extremely overwhelmed, like they aren't doing well, maybe as a father, financially, and it's taking a toll on how they feel as a man, making them feel less of a man. What advice would you have for these fathers who are trying to show up in a way that society says that they are supposed to, and it's making them feel like they're missing the mark, even though they may have other beautiful qualities that they can instill in their child and give to their child, but they're still feeling overwhelmed trying to check off society's boxes?
Yeah, one of my bros told me when we was pregnant with my son, and he's younger than me, but I think he's on his fourth child now. At that point, he already had two and one on the way. And we had met up one day. He was driving at that time. He had like three different jobs, and I think I had to give him a shirt or something like that. And we had met up, and he was just tired, and I could tell his energy was low. So we had about 15 minutes to just talk, and he was like, "Bro, if I could give you any piece of advice, I would say figure out a way to create time. A lot of men is going to tell you do whatever you got to do, get 3, 4 jobs, max out." But I'm missing time. I got all these jobs. I'm covering the bills. I'm doing what I got to do as a man. I don't see my kids, bro. So before your son gets here, before your child gets here, and I know you kind of already in that capacity where you doing the counseling and all of that, he's like, yo, figure out a way where you can still receive and create abundance, but with time. You can't create time until you create time, right? And that's the part a lot of men miss because they so gung-ho. I got to do this. I got to get the bag. I got to have these 3, 4 jobs. I ain't got no time for myself. Then you don't have time to receive the guidance and the downloads like I just previously talked about. So a lot of times men see things like meditation and stillness and presence as feminine, as not manly, as you wasting time, if you will. But until you start to create time for yourself, you're going to find yourself in positions where you're capable of getting to the bag, but it's costing you so much time and presence and beautiful moments with your actual seeds that it don't even feel like you're being present as a parent and as a father. You're just paying bills. So create time for yourself, and that will put you in spaces where you could create more time for your family and not have to be away from them at work all day, every day.
Women look up to you for many reasons. Obviously, you fine as hell. But your energy as a teacher reminds them of a father figure, which also adds to the attraction. Your honesty, you're a gentleman, you're supportive, you're brilliant, and you're very quiet and observant, extremely mysterious. And many women view that as a beautiful quality that checks off their boxes. How does it make you feel that women view you in this way?
It's weird. It's definitely weird. I got to be honest. Not in a negative way. Uh, the onus, I guess, that comes with that type of responsibility is something I accepted very early on. At the first spiritual retreat I went to, and we did a fire ritual, and it was the last day of the retreat. We had a big bonfire. We wrote down 5 things that we wanted to burn away that would take us to the next level of ourselves if we burned them away. Threw it in the fire, and I had an immense release, cried for hours. And when we came back in to share, all the women from all over the world talked about abuse, molestation, sexual abuse. And in that moment, my heart opened up in a way where I could feel, but not just what they felt, but women across the world have been dealing with in a lot of different ways. So from that point, I've known as part of my responsibility as a guide to help walk men home to realizing what we've done to women and hold women's hands on their way to the wounds that's in their heart. And that could put you in a space where you are, as a practitioner, sharing more intimacy with them on a soul level than their husbands, their fathers, their boyfriends. And that takes a huge level of understanding the responsibility that comes with that, especially me being a husband and having a wife of my own. Um, but it does remind me of a quote I think Carl Jung said, and this is how I see God. The quote is, "Be like the sun that emits light but does not suck light." Right? And ever since I heard that quote, and I understand a huge part of my mission is to help women, I don't need nothing in return outside of just seeing you level up. I don't need any extracurricular, let alone sexual. A lot of times I help women that don't even sign up for an actual session with me. They just send me voice notes, docs. Can you respond to this when you get a chance? And I still take the time to engage in these ways, even though this is how I provide for my family. I know it's myself, and there are brothers throughout the grid in this generation of humanity that are also holding that mantle. It's not many of us just yet, but if we hold the mantle properly, that will trickle and is trickling into the other men who may not have seen things this way, that can help even more women. And when we do that, we ain't got to do the picket lines. We ain't got to march. We ain't got to rock the vote, right? Now we put ourselves in a position of power as humanity, as black and brown people, as men and women. Now we allow the family structure, the community structure to come back by taking the onus and taking that responsibility as men who have that capability. So it's weird, but it's an honor, definitely an honor to be able to hold that space.
Many men struggle with cheating and, like you said before, the lack of attraction that they may have in their relationship, or there's just something within them that is causing them to have wandering eyes. And it's ruining their relationships that 9 times out of 10 they actually really want to be a part of. They really do love their wives or their girlfriends. What advice do you have to the ones who want to change but don't really know how to, or even why they cheat to begin with?
You can reprogram how you see women as a man. And it got to a point where I was tired of my own overstimulated sexual energy. Because I use this analogy too. A man walks down a New York City block, he sees 100 women, 70 is attractive to him, and he don't say a word to none of them. But those 70 women is walking through his head for the rest of the day. Regret that he didn't try to spark something with those women is now in his spirit. So he's carrying the energy of strangers just because they look good. That's too much, right? And it started to piss me off. It pushed me to a point though that instead of seeing the lady lumps, the ass and titties, the faces and all of that, I started to see reverence for what God had created, and not just in the physical form. I started to see beyond the physical, right? And I started to be able to like literally hear and feel wounds. Like a woman walking past me, sometimes I could feel the heaviness on their heart, right? I started to open up in a way where I started to see these women as human beings, not sexual conquests. And then that opened up the potential of, if you do try to engage this woman, yeah, she look good, well, she ain't healed from yet. How can she potentially damage or jeopardize what you have established for your healing, for your journey? So now all these other parameters are coming online beyond she look good. With these coming online, now I got the responsibility of navigating these other equations that have now come into me seeing a beautiful woman walk past me. Now her being looking good is no longer enough. And now I've established so much of connection to the source that I can see a beautiful woman and acknowledge the God in that without, oh damn, she had the fat. It's not even that, right? So once men are able to get to that point where we can rewire how we literally look at quote unquote a beautiful woman and factor these other things in, you'll have less impetus. You'll be less quick to try to push the button and initiate a conversation to try to bag or get a number and eventually, have sex or cheat if you would, in a committed relationship. You got to be able to see the reverence and the God within women beyond the lady lumps.
You spoke a lot about semen retention and how there was a time you had, issues with your eye, you had issues with your kidneys. And one of the things that you utilized was meditation, semen retention to help you heal those things, but it also aided in your spiritual healing journey. Can you tell us more about that process, how that helped you in your relationships, but it also helped you in your health, and then it also catapulted your spiritual journey?
That's what helped put me into presence. Because if you're thinking about a man, yeah, money, cars, wealth, is what we're pursuing. What's the first pursuit? Women. The biggest, most powerful pursuit is women. So when I was able to reharness and redirect my sexual energy in during that year of celibacy, no masturbation included, no sexual release whatsoever, that helped first my physical body heal, helped my kidney heal up. I still got a lazy left eye. I don't know if y'all could tell, but my left eye still kind of lazy from the surgeries I had to get. My retina had exploded and detached due to the stress and how much energy, life force I was siphoning out. But when I redirected that, yes, physical, but then when you ain't got to constantly think about bagging new women, the energy, time, money it takes to put yourself in spaces to bag women, which is the club, getting a nice car, getting nice things to be attractive to women. And then you ain't got to spend energy and thought on keeping up with your lies and juggling all these different women, right? So all that energy of pursuit, the largest level of pursuit that goes towards women from men, all of that was now off the table. I had just freed up all this energy, this time, this space to investigate other things, which made the things like presence, sitting still, going in the forest, doing the breath work, talking to women and helping them through their wounds felt like the fulfillment I would have got from sex on a deeper, more resonant level. But I wouldn't have been able to do that without first, at least me, redirecting my energy, which helped me take that constant pursuit, even if only in our head, off the table. And then I was able to pull and plug and put other things in the place of that.
And you did that with meditation as well, right?
Absolutely.
Can you go deeper into just expressing what meditation did for you? Because a lot of people think of meditation and they're already bored.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go on Instagram and you have people making fun of meditating and they're like thinking about sex or they're thinking about what they're about to eat and they're making a lot of humor about it. But meditation is such a deep, powerful way to have direct access to God and the God within you. What can you say to people who need something that and meditation can possibly be the cure?
Meditation is sex. Meditation is cosmic sex, it's divine sex, it's sex with God. That may sound weird to some of y'all who may have not experienced that just yet, but there's that stage when you first starting to practice where there's a wall, mentally, a wall of thoughts. And you either get frustrated with not being able to go beyond that wall. You may start to anticipate there's nothing beyond that wall. You may get distracted on your way to penetrating that wall, or you just get bored. So a lot of people aren't desperate. I was desperate, right? I'm suicidal. I got kidney. I'm blind. Like, yo, I was using God like a genie in a bottle. Please heal me. That level of desperation gave me the impetus to keep trying. And eventually, months in, doing very simple practices, I started to penetrate the wall. And I would get little glimpses, seconds here, seconds there, where like this wave of euphoria would come over me. It would be real brief. But I started to notice this ain't like some thing I'm making up. Like it's tangible. that gave me the inspiration to dig further. What's beyond that? And like God, I call it God leaving rose petals on the way to the bedroom of being, right? Being presence, being in the heart of God, if you will, going beyond the human experience. And it gets to the point where you become established in meditation enough where you realize this ain't about a chore. I'm not doing this to affect my humanhood, my personhood, to affect my bank account, to manifest like a lot of people approach meditation. We want to get something out of it. Meditation is about what you're willing to give up. And if you give up the idea of yourself, God is on the other end of that, right? What the yogis talk about as far as self-realization and enlightenment and the bliss that starts to come online for you. The analogy I often use, when you are able to reach those bliss body spaces, imagine every atom in your body on its own individual roller coaster going in different directions, but only at the point where you're on a roller coaster and you get to the top, and that feeling of that first swoosh, every part of your being doing that over and over, second after second. It's a feeling I can never describe to somebody until they structure their regimen in a way to have the direct experience. So I could give you the homework till you blue in the face. I could say meditation till you blue in the face, and not everybody's soul is ripe to be able to experience that. But when you do, everything else becomes the side piece. My wife, the side piece. My career, my purpose, my son, everything else is side pieces. That space within myself is always going to be the main. But you got to do the work to get to that point. But sex is how I describe it: euphoria, bliss, orgasmic energy. But you got to get through those walls to get to it.
There seems to be a huge divide between men and women, masculine and feminine. The relationship podcasters are terrible and adding to this division. What do you think the cause of this divide is, and what is the cure for this divide? How can we get men and women to love one another again?
Because people have skipped the I don't know space as far as relationships. And to like compensate for I don't know, you try to act like you know. And you take templates of other people and you kind of put together an amalgam, and then okay, this is my template, but most of the people we speak to, the men that speak to other men, women that speak to other women, these conversations being had on these podcasts, a lot of it is coming from trauma. A lot of it is coming from wounded spaces, and when you got a world of unconscious wounds, you can monetize that. That becomes entertaining to be able to tap into the wound that you have here. That's going to resonate with the wounds across the general populace, and that's going to make you lit. That's going to allow you to have those hot button topics. That's going to make you go viral every single video. But this is why you now start to see the pushback in the comment section, telling the government, please take these people podcast equipment away because we tired of the shit. Everybody's having the same conversations. Nobody's going really beyond the surface, beyond what's topical. And I think this is why people resonate to podcasts like what me and you have developed, Remembering Me podcast, because we're not going to talk to you about 50-50 till you blue in the face. We're not going to talk to you about the Cheesecake Factory till you blue in the face, or polygamy. We'll have some of those conversations, but we're going to go to the healing end of the spectrum as opposed to only talking about the wounded shit. And the wounded shit is kind of running the world, but we are entering a phase of humanity where that's no longer going to be the case. You're seeing these men being convicted and sued for what the wounds have produced. This is the era of truth. Cat Williams is going super viral right now, and he kept saying, and I've been saying, this is the era where you cannot hide behind wounds. You're not going to be able to be successful based off of it or monetize it. So if you're not really doing that work, it's going to show in your conversations, it's going to show in your platforms. And that's kind of what's happening right now. So if you're listening to a podcast, if you're looking for people to follow their guidance, first and foremost, tap into your own, but really hold people to the fire and ask yourself that question. Are these conversations only about wounds? Where's the healing here? Where is the solutions here? Where is the problem solving in these conversations? If you don't see that, run the other way.
And what advice could you give to heal the masculine and feminine collective? Someone reached out to me, and it was a man, and he wanted me to relay the message to you because he was really grateful that the conversations that you have on your platform are conducive to bringing us together, to helping us understand each other more as opposed to being divisive. So, what advice could you give, or what do you think we could all do to where we can all come together and heal that masculine and feminine collective?
We got to be gangster enough to do it one at a time. It's two different worlds, completely different nuances, similar wounds, similar trauma. But what goes into feminine trauma and masculine is very different in a lot of ways. You can't have those conversations all at the same time. So you use the word divisive. The derivative of that is divide. We got to feel safe enough in what we supposed to say to be okay and being the villain, because a lot of times I'll have stints like right now I'm very challenging of the men right now. People who just finding out about my page, if you go do your due diligence, I've had women mad at me for years at a time, busting these shots at them as well with love and trying to get us to challenge how we think. But I've realized that when I try to have these conversations all in one as if they're a monolith, it's too much going on. This is why the couples I work with, when they're trying to argue, there's so much pressure in that attempt to get to resolution. Because one, you're trying to say what you got to say. You're trying to hear what your partner has to say. They trying to do the same thing at the same time. So you got all these different layers of information you trying to handle in one moment. And this is what ends up becoming an argument. Also because you think, well, we got to resolve this, so we got to scrape the plate all at once. I refer to it in my couple sessions as nibbling. When you are comfortable with doing it a piece at a time, you may engage in a exchange with your mate that you get to 10% of the argument or the 10% of the information before y'all argue. If you are healed enough to realize, all right, we've reached capacity, 10% is all that's available for today. You take your notes, you go into your separate quarters, you do your due diligence, you process the emotion. 2 days later, all right, I'm ready to revisit the argument. Now you go from 10 to 25% before y'all pissed off, right? You do the same thing again. And now there's not this onus or this pressure of needing to scrape the whole buffet plate. Now you realize we can nibble our way towards the resolution. And I don't even expect it to be resolved in one conversation. It may be a month of nibbling before we figure it out. We got to be able to take that same approach on a general populace perspective, where we realize sometimes we just got to address men. And when we do that, women don't come in the comment section saying, but what about us? And vice versa. Let's take the time to be divisive and understand the healing that's in division before we can come back together.
Okay, I have two more questions.
Okay.
This just led me into the next question. You speak a lot about a lot of controversial topics on your social media platform regarding relationships that at this point some men don't agree with, but you have pretty much all women saying how grateful they are and thrilled that somebody has finally spoken in a way that they haven't had the words or the capacity to speak up for themselves.
Right.
What would you say to the men who have such a hard time understanding, comprehending, or implementing your teachings that are to help them learn how to love women the proper way, but they're so resistant to that and they're still going with the ideologies and the behaviors that obviously have not been working?
I would say that's exactly what they're supposed to do. I would say I respect them. I respect it, and I love them. And I love them for that resistance, because I would have had the same resistance and that frequency of myself. And there is still the collective karma. Shout out to my brothers like Derek Jackson, brothers who have held space in a relationship field, if you will, but have had moments where they've collected a lot of stain with women and maybe I don't really put men down. I'll challenge them, but I haven't had that energy. A lot of the brothers that precede me have had that energy. So when they have fallouts, it's like, see, look what he did. Look what he was doing. And Derek Jackson is my brother. We legit have a friendship. And when it first happened, I just looked at him as the result of what a lot of men are going through. I didn't badmouth him. I didn't bash him. I prayed for that brother. That turned into years later, me and my wife, me and you have an experience where we had our first real super viral video of us sharing space on our honeymoon. Well, you didn't know it was about to be, not our honeymoon. My proposal ceremony. We was in St. John's and it was a moment where it was raining. You was capturing some meditation content for me, and it was non-sexual intimacy, a 10-minute video that we put up and he ended up reviewing, and a lot of people made their way to our page off of that. That don't happen if I badmouth him. If I sent out the energy of fuck Derrick Jackson, right? I understood his plight was all of our plight. That turned into us being able to have a relationship. But with that being said, we do still gotta accommodate and factor in the karma that has come with, yeah, he was saying all this positive shit, but he was doing stuff behind closed doors. A lot of the power that goes into my words is I'm actually living this. I've actually had enough time to not just be able to conceptualize it and vocalize it, which a lot of men have that gift of gab right now. They can say it in a way that feels and sounds great, but behind closed doors, they haven't healed enough to have the stain. I got the stain of being loyal to my wife. I got the stain to have worked with thousands of women over the course of 7 years where none of them have ever said, yeah, I caught Doc's looking down. I caught them looking at other pieces of myself outside of my eyes. They can feel that resonance on me, and that's a threat to men. Even beyond what I'm saying, the women being able to pick up on that authenticity and saying things like, it's sexy. I don't see myself as sexy. My wife do, right? I'm a good looking guy, when I get my hair cut and shit like that. But I don't see myself as sexy energy. But that heart chakra healing work I've done comes across in a way where if a woman is in her sacral and she can't pick it up on her heart level, that's sexy to her. That looks like a threat to men that have been told you need to have the bag, you need to be rich, you need to have 1 million followers for it to be sexy to a woman. They seeing me with my 60,000. I'm not super rich, and it's like, well, why is that shit sexy? He not famous. He not some big rapper. He's in a space where I could potentially reach, but I haven't done the work to do that. And that becomes a threat. And it puts them in an adversarial space where if they allow themselves to receive that message, then it becomes an indictment on the work that they haven't put in for emotional healing, leveling up and evolving in the realms beyond money and being good in the bedroom, which is what a lot of us have been taught. That's all you got to do. Now here come this brother saying no. That's a whole segment of manhood that you have never even thought about. And niggas like, damn, I got to do that too now? So I get it. But the resistance for those who are ripe enough this lifetime, this week, next month, whatever it is, my job is to plant the seeds. So if the seed is planted, if resistance is happening, the seed is there, whether they agree with it or not. So
Beautiful. Last question. Many women admire your marriage, our marriage. Many women are under the comments and they're like, God, it's me again. And they have a deep desire to be loved by a man like you, to be nurtured, to have someone be extremely supportive, that knows how to hold space, that knows how to be emotionally present, that knows how to provide, that knows how to create safe spaces in the way that you do. And they see that and they admire it and they want it. They often ask, what's the prayer? Right? So, my question to you, what advice do you have for those women that are like, what do I need to do to have a good man? I can't find them. What do I need to do to attract a man like you in my life? And do you have a prayer for them?
that's a great question. Um, Knowing what I know now, if I was a woman, it would be a simple prayer. It wouldn't even be long. I would be asking God, I would be praying, God, send me a man that is so in love with you that I'm expendable. Send me a man that's so in love with you that I'm expendable. Meaning, and we tell each other all the time that we are each other's side pieces. That sometimes I wake up, you still want to be with me. Does it still resonate for you? And vice versa. We ask each other those questions because if he has that level of commitment to God, everything else is going to fall into place. And he's not going to be doing things, healing, evolving for you. If he's doing it for you, at a certain point, it's going to burn out. At a certain point, it's not going to be enough. And at a certain point, it's still the game. It's as much the game as buying a woman a drink at a bar. With the new generation of men that have realized healing is sexy to women, right? So they'll do a lot of this work, and you'll realize 2 years in, 5 years in, 10 years in, oh, that wasn't really for you and your relationship with God. It was a ploy. You was trying to get closer to me. So I was ready to let go of the whole world. I was about to move to India, not tell a soul. Before I met my son's mother, before I established the community in New Jersey, I wasn't going to tell my family, my parents, nobody. I was that in love with God that I was going to move to an ashram in India and nobody was ever going to see me again. Of course, that's not what happened. But that level of radical, like Mary J used to sing about, that real shit, that real love, it got to be directed to God, and it will trickle out properly how it's supposed to from that point. So that would be the prayer. Not how much money he got, how his portfolio looking, what his car looking like. All that shit is gonna fall into place. If he has that radical love for God first, to the degree that if you don't align with that, that he'll even be okay with like allowing you to leave. That's the space a man need to be in to get what he's supposed to get out of life, and to be a quality partner, and to continue to learn how to be a quality partner. Because that's the thing with that level of love for God, that you don't reach that and then that's just it. You got to continue to learn day in and day out how God wants you to love him on Thursday, on Friday, in March, in 2024. That continues to shift and evolve, and it becomes almost a romance where you got to find new ways to give God flowers, and God finds new ways to give you flowers, just as a man and as a human being. Then that trickles into your diversity and how you're able to love on your woman, and never being predictable, and always finding ways to keep her on her toes and things of that nature. So that would be my prayer.
How does a woman attract a man like that?
You
How do
don't.
they find a man like that?
You don't. You get to the point where you're not even worried about attracting it. My wife didn't attract me. I didn't attract my wife. Again, 1,400 miles away. This was not supposed to happen. We tapped into a level of love of God where everything else was expendable, including the idea and thought, I need a soulmate. I need my Mr. or Mrs. Right to complete my cipher. We had suspended and released those programs, and we was literally, you was out in spaces like this. I was in my little ashram of my apartment and shit like that. We didn't care about none of that. So if you're still asking the question of how do I attract my soulmate, you ain't tapped into the deepest levels of love with God yet. And that's a check engine, like, there's more work to do. You do that, everything you need comes.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for this perfect interview.
Thank you.
Tell people where they can find you.
God.
I know that's right.